Hello and welcome to I Helped Make That. Today we have a very special guest. You may know him as Doofy from the scary movies, or you may know him from his work with Rob Zombie. However, we are actually talking about his small but memorable role in the 2001 cult classic Ghost World. Welcome, Dave.
What's up, America? It's America, dude. Learn the rules. I think that's what Doug said. In Ghost
Yes,
World.
it is.
I'm always in. It seems like my whole entire career has been in cult classics. I'm in a lot of cult classics.
Mhm.
I should have joined a cult.
That's true. But before we talk about Ghost World, if Anid was a teenager in 2022,
Oh boy.
she and Seymour would have probably started a podcast. And if you've ever seen the movie, she probably would have failed art because she got canceled due to something she said on the podcast. However, do you want to know what she used to record the podcast?
What? A microphone.
Anchor. Because it is the easiest podcasting platform to use. And because it is the easiest, it is the most affordable for a teenage girl. All you do is sign up for an account, then record, then post on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those platforms.
It's so easy. A teenage girl could do it.
Or just a teenager.
Yeah. Or a 53-year-old actor.
Yeah.
Anchor. Anchor's
Yep.
a what?
Yep. Anchor is the way. Now, Dave, I have to wonder, what was it like when you first heard you were getting an audition for Ghost World? Were you familiar with the comic?
Guess as I bit into my food. I was familiar with the comic for many years. I was friends with Dan Klaus and Terry Zwigoff years before. And I did meet them. You asked about Crumb. I did meet them through Mike Judge, who was a fan of the Crumbs, and the underground comics and stuff like that. And as you know, Terry Zwigoff did the documentary on Crumb. So I was already familiar with 8-Ball comics and the stuff that Dan Klaus was doing, like Ghost World and stuff like that. I actually didn't audition for the movie. They put my character Doug in the movie because I was making a feature film with Mike Judge and Richard Linklater, Doug, and it got shut down during production. And and so Terry Zwigoff originally was on to direct that film with us, and it was a problematic film. The producer Weinstein were producing, and they were there. It was I just would not sleep with either one of the Weinsteins, so therefore the movie got shut down. I guess I wasn't cute enough. So that's when Terry called me. They were already in production, Ghost World, and he said, "What do you look like?" And I said, "Oh, I look like Doug. I've got the mullet, the mustache, everything." And he said, "Why don't you come to our set and we'll find something for you to do?" And so really I got planted into that movie. My character already existed. In fact, it all came out of this movie right here that I made when I was between 19 and 21 years old. Really, it's just these are my college films that I made to go to film school. And it was called Dave Sheridan's American Million. And let's see where the camera is. And you could see there's Doug right there. And this was on this tape. Terry, Richard Linklater, Mike Judge, they all saw these tapes in the 90s, early 90s, when I put it out on VHS. I still have about, I don't know, I haven't counted, maybe 50 of these left. They were like they're still shrink wrapped and everything. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So, what was it like then to prepare for the character of Doug? Like, did you have to grow out that mullet? Did you have to grow out the mustache?
Yep.
Oh, did you have to work out to get that physique?
All of that. But, again, going back, I was already shooting the movie. But to prep for that movie, I was working out because, I eat these things like protein bars. Back then, I was a lot younger, so my metabolism was more. So now it's hard to stay fit. But I just ate a lot of chicken and eggs and no carbs and did a lot of running and push-ups and sit-ups. And then I also did karate classes, but mainly for the nunchucks. And like the guy was also teaching me swords and all this other stuff, but it wasn't karate. It was, I don't know, martial arts with weapons. I don't know what that's called. But yeah, I grew the hair. I didn't walk around with a mullet. I had long hair, and then right before shooting, I cut it into the mullet. And same thing with the mustache back then, because this was like 2000, 2001. I don't think I looked very good with a mustache. So I think I just had a beard or a goatee. I think I had a goatee, and then I shaved it to a mustache right before we shot. So,
Okay. And then,
can I say one thing really quick,
yeah.
Kevin? The only thing that's artificial in Ghost World in that thing was the sunburn. I'm shirtless with the sunburn. That's airbrushed. We took a white, tank T-shirt, and then we airbrushed red, and then we lifted that off to give me like the sunburned arms and the thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So then what was it like filming the scenes? Like, first things first, and I asked this about Hocus Pocus as well when I did an episode on that. I don't know if you are aware, but Thora Birch's father has like a terrible reputation in the industry as being like an awful father slash manager. But did you notice anything like that?
Nope. I don't even remember her father being on set, but I would say that Thora Birch and Scarlett Johansson and Brad Renfro, they were all 18 or younger. I think they were all under 18. And so Terry and Dan and Steve Buscemi, and knowing Doug and knowing who I am and the type of comedian I am, and I was a little imposing and scary to these young people. And the Malkovich produced that movie, by the way, and they all said, like, stay away from the kids. Please stay away from the kids. Don't say anything to the kids. Please don't get us in trouble. They were, there were boundaries even back then. It wasn't like Me Too stuff just appeared. People back then, there were gentlemen and people that were polite, which I was too. But so I definitely steered clear of the minor. It just wasn't my place. I didn't feel comfortable. I was shirtless, and I was wearing little shorts and stuff like that. And I didn't have a lot of interaction with the two girls or Brad. Little, at lunch we had some conversation, but for the most part I stayed away during the filming just because Doug was that way anyway. My relationship in the film was that way, and so I just didn't want there to be any problems. Somebody saying I said something, I used dirty words in front of them or something like that, because they were young.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But outside of that, what was it like filming the two scenes you were in?
It was incredible. Steve Buscemi and I improvised a lot, and as well as the guy who played the manager at the market. His name's Brian, and he's from the Groundlings. He's really funny guy. He was on Seinfeld. He was in Bubble Boy with me, and so as I said, that Terry and those guys just added me in, so there really was no script. I kind of was just improvising my lines and just shooting the shit with people.
Okay. Well, even though you improvised all your lines,
Yeah.
were you just out of curiosity still given the script?
Yes, I have this, and I probably have it. I think I keep all my scripts. So, good question, because I probably need to go through and at some point find all these scripts. I think they're scattered around.
Okay. And now,
Good. It's a very well written script.
oh, yeah. And we'll get into that soon. Though, before we do, I'm just kind of
Blues,
curious.
I love Blues Hammer. That was the best part. I love the Blues Hammer part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get into why the movie works so well. But just out of curiosity, before we do, Terry Zwigoff, for people who don't know, also directed Bad Santa.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I know you weren't in it, but were you considered for a role in that movie?
Uh, I can't recall. I don't think I was. Now, the one thing about Bad Santa, and I think Terry had he didn't, it really pushed him, that experience pushed him away from wanting to do more stuff with studios and stuff. And Todd Phillips came in and reshot a lot of stuff for that movie and did additional pickups because I think Paramount put that movie out. I don't know if it's Warner Brothers or Paramount.
It was Miramax, actually.
Miramax put Bad Santa out?
Yeah.
All right. Well, either way, like Terry did not enjoy that process. Now, did he do Bad Santa before Art School Confidential, or was it Art School Confidential and then Bad Santa?
No, it was Bad Santa, then Art School Confidential.
Right. Now, I went to the set of Art School Confidential and hung out and stuff like that. And I was a little, I thought that would have been something for sure. They could have found something for me. I wouldn't say reprise Doug, but it seemed like a more fitting place to be able to find a character that Dave can create. So I'm not quite sure. I'm always wondering why I don't come back to some sets. Like, for instance, Marlon Wayans and the Wayans, I did Scary Movie with. I've done 11 movies with them. But then, I've done one movie with Rob
Schneider?
No, Rob Cummings, which is
Okay.
Rob Zombie. And I haven't done any, and he's done like another 7 movies, and I don't think I've done one movie with him. It's not that there was any kind of situation or beef. I think a lot of times you're either out of sight or out of mind, or they just overlook you or don't think about you. On the Bad Santa thing, I don't think Terry had a lot to do with the casting. A lot of times when you get into a major studio situation, they already have the names they want, and the studios have a lot to do with that. And the bigger agencies, there's a lot of politics that go on. And with that said, though, I did audition for Bad Santa 2. I think I was like a security guard working with the lady, which I haven't seen that movie. And I don't think Billy Bob's not in that. I don't even know. Is he in that? I don't know.
I wouldn't bother with Bad Santa 2. I didn't like it very much, but it's
but
like
there was do you know there was like a security guard guy in that with like conjunction with like the woman who was like turned out to be the bad guy or something. She was I auditioned for that role.
Yeah, it was like Billy Bob Thornton, Brett Kelly, and Tony Cox all returned, and that was like the only pretty much the only people from Bad Santa in general.
I would like Billy Bob, though. I mean, I do think like Simple Plan. He's so good in Simple Plan, and obviously Sling Blade. I wouldn't say he's great in it, but it certainly put him on the map. Being around for so many years in Hollywood and getting that film made, and his performance obviously was enough to warrant a big career out of it. So,
Yeah, but back to Ghost World, I would say that, as you were saying, it's a great script. It is a very niche movie, which is probably why it didn't like kill the kill the at the box
Right.
office. But again, it is the sort of movie that is like something that you that would definitely find its audience on video. And I think, well, there's so many just great things about that movie.
There
Like,
really, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, if you broke it up into just scenes, you that's one of those films where you can come in 20 minutes into the movie and go, oh, but I love this scene. Oh, here's a good scene, because there's just a lot of conversational scenes,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying, that are just like standalone, but then it ties in together because there's a theme going throughout and the characters go throughout. But they have various scenes, including my scenes. It's
Mhm.
almost like that's a scene. Okay, now a scene at the bar, a scene at the diner, a scene at the record store.
Mhm.
They all have their own sort of like, that's a great scene. There's a
Mhm.
book into each part of these scenes, but at the same time, it tells a whole movie. And the palette, and when I say palette, like the clothing and the colors and it,
Mhm.
the one thing I would say about Terry in that film was it had a sense of style without
Mhm.
being and it had the comic book style, like a frame, like we're watching the StreamYard and I'm seeing a frame of you and a frame of me. We're not, the camera's not moving. But when you read a comic book, it's frames. And I felt like the Ghost World, stemming from graphic novel, stemming from a comic book, did capture that sort of vibe of the comic book, in the
Mhm.
fact that if you go back and watch it, there's not a lot of camera movements. He really sets up the camera in a composition shot, lets it sit, and lets the actors fill that frame and do their thing. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Versus some filmmakers just move the camera around so much. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and also, not just in terms of like feeling like it's the comic book come to life, but it's just a great sort of coming of age story,
yeah,
like about this cynical teenager who thinks, she's better than everyone else. And at
that,
first, it seems like,
would you say that's an oxymoron? Like a cynical teenager is that is every teenager to an extent. So
yeah, but I mean, like a super cynical
yeah, very
teenager.
super cynical.
Like,
True.
like, that one. And I was pretty much this, but that one kid in school, who just seems to hate or make fun of everything.
Right.
I mean,
I have one sitting upstairs right now watching TikTok. TikTok.
yeah, but I think Anid would like. She'd probably hate TikTok.
Exactly. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
she'd be on she would be ironic, you know what I mean? Trying to do
Mhm.
the ironic thing. She'd on Friendster or LinkedIn or something like that. I'm only on LinkedIn.
Mm. Honestly, she'd probably be watching VHS and
Yeah.
using regular phones
Yeah.
just to be ironic.
Yeah.
Um,
I love movies.
Yeah, but just as I was saying, like it's sort of this great story of like a teenager just having sort of their, how do I say this, worldview broken down a bit, sort of realizing they aren't the center of the universe and that the people around them, at least some of them, are still people. Like Seymour, like how she thought, at first he was just something to make fun of,
Right.
but then she, actually gets to know him and sort of as she gets to know him, sort of sort of a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Epiphany, or like it opens her up a little bit to go, I'm the one that's being cynical and judgmental of all these people, but maybe they all have a story to tell, you know.
Yeah.
the Weird Al guy or the guy at the bus stop, the old man. You know what I mean? So
Hmm. Yeah, but admittedly, it's not really a happy movie, even though it's a primarily a comedy. Where like at the end, she's a much more optimistic person. I won't spoil the ending, but just in general, it's sort of a great character study
yeah,
about.
yeah. Uh, looking at it, and obviously, what does the word? It's like I'm in a lot of horror movies, so people say, "Oh, you're in Ghost World." They think that's like another one of my horror movies, but what was Ghost World? You know what I mean? It's sort of like the town she's living in is going nowhere. It's like you grow up in that town, you die in that town, and she's feels like she's around walking ghosts of they're not living, they're not alive. And when she plays the prank on Seymour and stuff, I sort of these cynical teenagers of the world revolves around me, and we're too hip and we're smarter than these people. Um, but it's sort of like a world inhabited at first by a lot of NPCs, non-playable characters. And so like Seymour then is looked at just like Doug, just like Weird Al, just like the old man at the bus stop. They're looked at like as non-playable characters. Uh, and so when they mess with Seymour, I think that is the idea that she now discovers that he still is a non-playable character, but the non-playable characters are alive. They do have their own stories to tell, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? So it opens it up like these girls were looking at the world like, oh, this town, and look at these fools. If people are used to playing video games to understand the
Mhm,
NPC characters in video games, you know what I mean?
mhm.
So,
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of brilliant bits of storytelling throughout. Like if you notice in the movie, sometimes it seems like a need is the more cynical of the two, and then at other times, seems like ScarJo's character, who's I hate to say it, whose name I'm just blanking on, so I guess I'll just call her ScarJo. Seems like she's the more cynical one, but it kind of
he's the more cynical one. That's interesting. That
yeah.
I thought a need was okay.
I mean, no, I'm saying it kind of goes back and forth
Yeah, yeah.
at times, and I
I
think that
I think a need relies on Scarlett Johansson's character to justify her own cynical views. Do you know what I'm saying? Like she's
yeah.
bouncing wall, just like a bully needs his laughing, two friends to laugh at the
Mhm,
bully stuff he does.
mhm,
Somebody cynical still needs somebody at that cynical lunch table. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Like the punk lunch table still has to have the next person over to go, yeah, I agree. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
know, but
yeah,
sorry, what'd you say?
you agreed with me. And I was
Yeah.
like, what's that?
Yeah, but I just mean like, sort of their interactions sort of subtly imply throughout, like, how their relationship is going to end up in the end. In general, it's just a movie that, works on so many levels, like the music is also great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the cinematography, as we said, the writing. I guess, picking back off of cancel culture, I guess there's a few jokes that don't age well, but most of the time I don't think they were really like condoned by the movie or its narrative.
Right.
Um, and even the few that do feel condoned, it was 2001. I know. I remember what was considered okay back then. Like, I'm not gonna get angry over it.
Well, like Seymour makes a lot of off-color jokes, but he's supposed to be jaded and rude. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
making a,
yeah.
you know, you're
And
and my character Doug, he says some very crass things, but he is that is the character. That's Doug. You know what I mean? He is. It's not. He's not an awesome, cool guy. He's supposed to be kind of a loser in that
Mhm.
town.
Yeah, and of course, a need,
Yeah.
obviously. But but also just, and of course, as we've said before, The cast is all great. This is Scarlett Johansson, kind of in that middle period where she was starting to become famous, but like Lost in Translation hadn't really caused her to blow up, the way her career did.
Right.
So, she was still kind of getting there. And,
Yeah.
Thora Birch is great. She's great. Steve Buscemi's great. You're great. Everyone's great in it. Yeah.
Ileana Douglas.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Top to bottom, it's a well-written script.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Zwigoff directed a good film, and he put a high-class cast together. Now that I look at the names that you just mentioned, that's pretty awesome. That's a good cast.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this is a perfect place to end it. But thank you, Dave, for coming onto the show.
I thank you, Kevin. Can I plug one thing for anybody watching?
Sure.
I'm currently doing an Indiegogo, speaking of independent movies, where we really rely on the viewers, the people like yourself listening to this. It's a way you can pre-buy the Blu-ray, or there's other perks on there. It's called New Fear's Eve. It's a horror movie that takes place on New Year's Eve. And you can find it at Indiegogo, New Fear's Eve.
Yeah. And I also know actually that you have we were speaking about Bad Santa earlier. Christmas horror movie coming out.
I do. It's funny. Today I have 3 other podcasts, but that's set up by the PR people that are putting that out, called the Christmas Tapes. It's called the Christmas Tapes, and I think, it's on my phone. I'm looking at my phone. I got to write it down. It's coming out in December. I think it's like December 11th on streaming. I would just Google the Christmas Tapes or go to IMDb. You look for the Christmas Tapes. If you see it's the one I'm in, usually on IMDb they say how you can watch them. You know what I mean? It's definitely on streaming, and it's definitely coming out on Blu-ray. I haven't seen the finished product yet. I'm going to be in Sacramento on December 14th. That's a Wednesday, December 14th, at the Sacramento International Film Festival. That's where we're premiering it. It's going to be myself and Vernon Wells, and it's a pretty cool film that I shot up in Sacramento. Yeah.
All right. Great.
Kevin, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end it. And that was I Helped Make That. And I'll see you all later.
I helped make it.